Hey, what's going on, Renegade Nation? I just got done recording with Reed, and it is a really deep this is fairly harrowing. I'm going to go ahead and just let you know up front that this is not for the faint of heart going into this one. A few points. Number one is that there's just very not many. There's probably two, maybe just adult language that's used. So if you have kids and you're listening to in the car or just in a public space, just know that it is in there. Number two, Skya is in the room with me, and there are two times. One's at like 6 minutes, and one time toward the end where she does start barking. So just know, and you'll probably see Puppy even behind me, jumping, jumping off to go bark at the neighbor's dog. So there's that. The other part, oh, and then number three is that this does include self-harm. So also just be, if you're triggered by that, just know that a lot of Reed's story, not a lot, but there are just some points highlighted throughout that self-harm is mentioned. And so, number one, in regards to that, is that if you or somebody you know are struggling with that, I've put a link in the show notes of somebody that you can reach out to. It's a number that you can text. But please reach out, talk to somebody, and please let somebody know that you are struggling. Other than that, guys, this is a fantastic episode. So please sit back, enjoy. Let us know. Let me know if you enjoy this one. And please, if you have an opportunity, just take a moment and hit subscribe on wherever you're listening to your podcast. Guys, this is Coach Steve. This is Renegade Radio, the one podcast meant for misfits, for renegades and rebels, for those of us who don't like the status quo, and for those who are just square pegs and round holes. This is Renegade Radio, Season 2, Episode 013, featuring Reed Wilson. I thought that I had the complete honor.
To potentially look 12, people
Yeah,
mistake that
that's
they don't have the experiences, but here we are.
yeah. But well, let's why don't you go ahead and just start with your origin story? Tell the audience, who you are, where you came from, how in the world did you end up with Babyface as a nickname? Uh
Sure. Yeah.
yeah. So just take it from here and let's just see where this story takes us.
Sounds good. I'm Reed Wilson, otherwise known as Babyface Reid. I'm a classically trained circus strongman and pro steel bender. Been doing that come June for a decade. During that same time, I've been a personal trainer for about a decade as well. Really got into this because I was a firefighter for about 3 years of Northampton, Pennsylvania, Station 73, which is actually no longer there. They condensed it down to other stations,
Oh, no way.
but was hitting that in about started 2013, 2014, and was really finding I wasn't able to help people the way that I wanted to, and had a rough go prior to that point. I am the positive product of a broken home. Um, my mom moved in with my stepdad when I was one and really didn't know my dad until I was about 18 years old, my biological dad. And with my mom, she had done visual display merchandising for like Strawbridge's, Macy's, Boscov's, a lot of companies like that for most of her career. That's what she went to trade school for. So if you've ever seen like the mannequin displays in those huge box stores and all those cool like mannequin setups and fun things, that's all her.
Wow.
So kind of neat as far as that goes. But with that, she was absent a lot. So my sister and I were very much latchkey kids and left to our own devices most of the time. So growing up in Wilmsdorf, Pennsylvania, my hometown population, I think, is still less than 3,000 people. I dominantly went to school with farmers and Mennonites. So
That's
just,
a combo.
yeah. So when I perform and stuff, we'll make a long time joke that I'm just on a very long Romspringer. So that is what the Amish have their youth do to send them out in the world and scare them into coming back to their community. So obviously, with all these tattoos now, my elegantly disheveled self, they won't let me back.
What is it like when you do go back?
I have been back to almost sort of Pennsylvania probably twice as an adult, and a lot of things look the same, but I don't
Mm,
really have any family that exists in that area anymore. Most of my friends have moved out of that area. So if I'm going through that area, it's just kind of cutting through. Um, I think all in all with that, it's just with all the places that I've lived, everywhere kind of feels the same. The people are just a little bit different everywhere you go.
mhm,
So we lived in Wilmsdorf, Pennsylvania till I was 12. We moved out of Wilmsdorf from a bad living situation. My stepdad had a lot of demons he was facing,
mm,
turned heavily into alcohol, and was pretty physical as far as like alcohol got to him. So um, didn't really lay hands on my sister. He would be cruel to her in other ways by like calling her fat to the point where she would not eat a lot of the time. Would call her and I stupid and worthless pretty much on an everyday basis from the time I was
mm,
a little kid up until he left when I was 12 years old. And I don't think he has any recollection of it now. I'm sure if he did, there'd be a lot of guilt there and
mm,
a lot of regrets. But messed up my jaw pretty good when I was a kid to where I never used to smile in pictures, things that affect. He would get physical with my mom coming home sometimes, and
mhm,
that's when I would get hurt because I try to peel him off of her and things that effect. So when you're raised in that environment and you're told you're super worthless on an everyday basis, and there's that constant violence in other ways, it's just kind of conditioned. You learn to mask at a really young age,
hmm,
and you don't really want people to worry or be upset with you. So, kind of that goofy like class clown mentality, but also like trying to better your situation. I was a straight A student all through school, and just looked at it as an out. I was a very good wrestler,
hmm,
and those full ride scholarships were going to be an out for me. And we had moved out of Willisburg, Pennsylvania to Lynchburg, Virginia, right before I turned 13. We were in Lynchburg till just before I was 16. During my time in Lynchburg, I had just a really hard time. Was misdiagnosed as manic depressive,
hmm,
which I am actually bipolar too. So mismedicated for a while there. I tried to take my life for the first time at 15 years old.
hmm,
I had done self harm in the ways of like cutting and burning myself for like cathartic release, just to feel things most of the time.
hmm,
So when I was medicated, um, I took whatever was like in the pantries and the cabinets and stuff. As far as like whatever meds we had, I had just broken my hand before this attempt. So I had all the painkillers available to me with that. And I remember crawling across our house floor. My sister was in her room with our neighbor and friend Sayward, and I crawled across the floor. My stomach rejected most things, and I threw it up. And my
hmm,
sister called an ambulance. And I remember being taken off in an ambulance. I was taken to a facility called Christ 6. And there's still that weird, like, reflection as a 15-year-old kid when they're explaining to you why they're taking your shoelaces and your belt away. And at that point in life, like, that's what I needed. I needed to be there amongst kids that were facing similar issues and feeling very isolated and feeling like that childhood was taken and you had to grow up really, really fast. It was interesting because I had a kid that, oh, I think I lost you, Steve. There we go. I
yeah, we're
had
good.
to, excellent. There was a kid that lived like 3 blocks over from me who was in there with me. He was growing weed in his closet. His dad put him in there for growing weed in his closet. And just like it was a punishment for him. It was just strange to see like these broken families, and all the kids kind of just trying to cope in their own way. And there's another kid that I'd actually wrestled in there from a neighboring school. I wrestled at that point in time for Lincoln Middle School going to EC Glass. And there's a kid, our rival school, Jefferson Forest, that was in there that we had wrestled each other like 3 or 4 times. And I always beat him. And we'd do like these group therapy sessions in Christ 6. And they'd ask him questions and stuff. And he was always just super kind to me. He was there for some anger issues.
Mm,
And I wasn't allowed to keep in touch with any of these kids outside of here. Like the parents collectively all thought it'd be a bad idea if we all kind of like got together for our own like independent issues, thinking it would like exemplify our issues we already had, which I always thought was kind of dumb. I think that solidarity would actually have been really helpful and impactful.
I agree.
So Um, I got really sick sometime in like my freshman year of high school. Sure, I had a massive vitamin D deficiency, and I ended up missing a lot of my um, freshman year following my attempted suicide.
Hmm.
And we moved away from Lynchburg, Virginia, right before my sophomore year. So moved to Woodbury, New Jersey, which is just outside of like South Philadelphia. It's like maybe a 5-10 minute drive from the South Philly Bridge. Hmm. And at this point in time, I was running track. I ran the 440. I threw shot put. I wrestled at the 140-pound weight class. I took state my 7th and 8th grade year. Started varsity as a freshman, and then was looking at ideally full ride scholarships to a couple of different schools. And after we moved to Woodbury, New Jersey, I had used football to stay in shape for all other sports. Didn't really care about it. Was just a decent athlete at that as well. So, day before school started my sophomore year, I went helmet to helmet with a kid, and I had had stingers before, but this one was different. Where when I tucked my head to get low, he hit me just right on the crown, where I felt the jolt go down my spine. But
Oof.
instead of it just being that temporary jolt, I started to have dull sensation my entire left side,
Oh.
and was taken to, I want to say it was Cooper Hospital in Trenton, New Jersey. I don't remember if that's the right name of the hospital, but I remember there was a hospital like a block from my high school where it apparently wasn't a good hospital. So they took me like 30, 45 minutes out to a much better hospital for what was going on. So I'm having contusions to the brain and spinal cord, which are pretty deep bruises. Hi, baby dog.
That's hold on one sec.
No worries.
I knew the neighbor's dog was gonna come out eventually,
All
but
good. You take your
no,
time, man.
you're good. She went to go
Yep.
bark somewhere else.
So with that, I'm at this hospital, getting the diagnoses, and on top of the bruises to the brain and spinal cord, fractures C2, C3 vertebrae. So had a lot of restrictions, still have some dull sensation even today from that at 33 years old. So you figure this is when I was 16. So still some residual issues from 17 years ago. And this is when I really thought my life was over because I thought my way out was gone. I thought
Mm,
all the things that I'd worked for prior to this time really took care of myself was stripped from me. I didn't see a way out anymore. So I think a lot of why I had hard time at like 15 to 16 is probably because of a childhood friend that took his life when I was 14 years old. And I think that's when I really started to have a hard time. Because when you're a kid, like nobody tells you that it's not your fault that somebody took their own life or that there's nothing you could have done to change their mind. And I think that's a really frustrating place to be as a young person in the world, not really understanding like control is an illusion. There's really very little that you can do to determine things other than be disciplined and try to do what's right for you and the people you care about. And for my buddy Jake that took his life, he just didn't see a way out anymore. He had found that permanent solution to a temporary problem. He was heartbroken. He got dumped on Valentine's Day. He got very, very drunk, and he shot himself 3 times in the chest. And because there's so much alcohol in his system, he lived for a while after they found him. So this is something that I carried with me for a very long time. And it took me a long time to realize that really has nothing to do with me at all whatsoever. And when people realize that a suicide or somebody losing their battle to mental health really has nothing to do with them as an individual, and it was just that the person gone was in so much pain and despair, what you kind of start to look at is you start to live your life for the people that are no longer here. And you're not just doing it for you anymore. It is understanding that these people were not selfish. They were just so lost that there was no escape for them. So I think it's super important for all the people that we've lost to continue to live life for them and go forward, even on the days that we don't want to, and knowing that they can't. So with that, I had a really weird high school experience going forward
mm,
because I ended up missing my entire sophomore year because of all the health issues I had with this major head and spine injury. And I was overly medicated for, at that point in time, they had deduced that I was not manic depressive, but bipolar 2 following that suicide attempt and was properly medicated, but perhaps over medicated. So between the medication, the head trauma, and the contusion and concussions, I was throwing up after almost every meal for almost a 2.5 year span. So lost a lot of mass very quickly, was very underweight, very sickly. And I think that's where like a lot of these issues kind of started to play into one another as far as the mental and physical health went simultaneously. So
Mm.
missing my entire sophomore year in a new school, not really knowing anybody, was very isolated. My aunt and uncle on my dad's side, my aunt Betty and uncle Rick, who pretty much raised me. I had a childhood best friend, John Deswanick, who lived right next door. And every weekend, for the most part, he would drive over from Philly and he would grab me. And I really think that the time that we had together with our friend group at that point in time was the difference of me being here versus not. So
Mm.
very grateful for getting to have that friendship for as long as I did. And just that being something to look forward to rather than just this constant drudging of nothing to look forward to and no hope, essentially.
Mhm.
So I went back to school my junior year. For Woodbury Junior Senior High School, they made a special amendment on how many credits you could earn in 1 year based on special circumstance, based on what happened to me. So I ended up doing my sophomore, my junior, and my senior year, all my junior year, as far as credit curriculum went. And because what they had was an alternative program where, again, for this high school, most kids would like end their school day at 2:30, what have you. And our school day would start at 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. So at 16 years old, I was going and doing school from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And it was interesting with most of the kids being there for disciplinary reasons or truancy. With being able to do a self-paced program and being able to finish all that curriculum so quickly, my living situation at home with my biological mom was not great at that point.
Hmm.
My sister was away at college at what used to be Randolph-Macon Women's College. That was just Randolph in Lynchburg, Virginia. So it was pretty much just me and her until her boyfriend came into the picture. And this man couldn't even look me in the eyes. So they would go out almost every night, out to eat and stuff. And at this point in time, my mom was still getting child support from my biological dad, but it wasn't being like utilized on myself or my sister. So there were
Mhm.
many times where there really wasn't food in the house and the fridge was pretty barren. But with what my mom went to school for, the house always looked like it was in order, it was always clean. It was this presentation. It was this
Mhm.
way that people could kind of look at her and understand that, oh, she is well put together. She has this good family, this, that, and the other. When in reality, it was all, again, an illusion in this instance,
Mhm.
where like you would eat everything that was there because you wouldn't know when there would necessarily be food again. And with that, like when me and my sister were kids, we were not allowed to leave the table until your plates were cleared. So
Mhm.
sometimes you'd sit there for like hour and a half, 2 hours, because my mom would just take veggies, dump them out of a can, throw them in the microwave with like a blob of butter and some water. By the time they hit your plate, be mush. So many times I remember like lighting up canned peas against the rim of my plate and asking to be excused when she was being paying attention, just so she'd think my plate was cleared until the morning I could lock myself in my room. So
Mhm.
coming back to as an adult or a young adult now, like teenagers, we're looking at it where I would have gone back and eaten those damn peas knowing that there wasn't food, you know?
Mhm.
So my junior and senior year, then I dominantly fed myself by taking tests for other kids
Oh,
because I
no
was done
way.
with all my schoolwork. So, and because it was all like a computer screen and self-paced, my high school graduating class was like 73 kids. My last name's Wilson. I just towards the end, it's whatever. But we had like a little um snack shop around the corner called Crown's Fried Chicken, and you could get like a box of fries for like $5, and you could get like Jamaican beef patties, which I'd like bite off a corner and put in a packet of hot sauce. So a lot of the kids were not able to go on break and stuff and go get food. I was able to most of the time because I didn't have disciplinary issues, and kids would pay me to go get food for them and pay me to take tests for them. So that's how I fed myself
Mhm.
throughout the week for most of my junior and senior year of high school. And then
Wow.
on the weekends, my aunt and uncle, who pretty much raised me, would feed me. My buddy John and his family would feed me. And we just never talked about it. This was just like what we came to accept. This was the norm. And we just took care of each other.
Mhm.
And I've talked to a few of those guys from school since. And it's just like we don't think about how bad some of that stuff was at that point in time because that's all that you knew. and you'd always delegate it to like, well, other people have it worse. Like, I've got somewhere to sleep. I'm not cold. I've got this other stuff going on, so it's not that big a deal.
Hmm.
So I graduated with my original graduating class. I graduated with 4.0. I moved out a week after graduating to go live with my dad, who had moved out to Surprise, Arizona, just outside of Phoenix, when I was like probably 6 or 7 years old. So really didn't know him, didn't have a relationship with him, outside of my mom taking support from him. And he would call on holidays sometimes and stuff, but he wouldn't talk long. And my Aunt Betty would describe it best. She would call him a great provider, but a lazy dad. And
Hmm.
that's just kind of how he was raised. You were just raised to provide for your family, not necessarily be present. So it was very eye opening for me when I got to go and spend that time with my dad, living with him for about a year and a half with my stepmom. And he had been a union iron worker since 17 years old. So getting to understand that he had worked more than full time. He would regularly work like 6 12s or 7 10s for blocks at a time since 17 years old and things like that, where it's just he's exhausted. There's nothing more to give. And I can understand and respect that. And then that as well, getting to see how sick my stepmom was
Hmm.
and how he took care of her, where at one point in time, with her different medical issues, um, with RSV, she essentially has it where the way that her nervous system works, in conjunction with the type of diabetes that she had and her neuropathy,
Hmm.
your and my body send relief signals and the nervous system receives pain. Hers act as amplifiers.
Hmm.
So with those nerves acting as amplifiers for her pain, her constant basis was being in pain. So at one point in time, she was enough morphine to kill you, me, and like three other people combined standing as her
Hmm.
baseline to survive. And over time, she got down off of most of her pain medications to where she was on 13 plus meds a day. And she had gotten down to one at one point, which is huge because most people that have those things do not get off those pain meds. They
No.
continue to add things to it. So she fought like hell to get off of those things. So, and just knowing how sick she was, how hard my dad worked. And even after work, I remember going and doing all the errands with him and taking care of her. He was just automatic in his routine, and there was never a question of it. You never saw him complain. It's just what he did. That's who he took care of. That was his person. So after having lived with them for about a year and a half, at that point in time, I had realistically been taking care of myself since about 14 years old and having to raise myself from that point. And I moved out back to Pennsylvania about a year and a half being there. I think I moved back early January, um, right before I turned 21 years old. And maybe it was a little bit longer, 2.5 years. Regardless, I moved back to like the Philly suburbs. There's a stretch where I was renting rooms from friends and just renting rooms independently and just staying at properties that like family or friends were selling just to kind of like look over the house until it's sold. And there's a stretch there. I was living throughout all various parts of like the Philly suburbs. I think I lived in 7 or 8 different places in about a 2 year span
Oh my god.
until I found something more solidified. And at that point in time, I had lived in over 10 places in less than 10 years. So it was just a lot of moving and a lot of not feeling like anything had a real permanence or I could dig in roots anywhere. So I was working 3 pretty physical labor jobs when I first moved back to PA. I was working for a paper company called Chambers Group, driving about 3 to 400 miles a day, going and fixing like copy machines at like big corporate buildings. And midday, I was doing shipping, receiving logistics for the RS Corporation out of 3 different locations for Toys R Us and Babies R Us. And then I was doing overnights at Lowe's for their freight unload. So I was working like 90-hour weeks and really not sleeping just to kind of like give myself an opportunity to survive. because nobody really tells you like, hey, all these things have pretty significant cost, and it's very expensive being poor. These aren't things that you're really told growing up. You think if you work hard, you have opportunities. It's a lot like eating glass. You just have to smile and do it, and just keep going forward. So I got a heart monitor put on me um, in the middle of being about 21 years old because I was working so much and not sleeping. I started to give myself a heart condition.
Hmm.
So got out of one of those jobs and then was just working two and had a better quality of life there for a while. But you're a young 20-year-old kid, you're doing stupid things and just like you're drinking with your friends. And this gets back to John, who I mentioned earlier, where we'd been childhood best friends. He was a year and 2 days older than me. So he's August 3rd, I'm August 5th. And we would share every birthday together. We did that for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And his dad was a really good electrician. So the big convenience store out there is called Wawa. So his dad got all the contracts on like all the Wawas in the tri-state area for all the electrical. So they constantly had work. And John's mom and dad would go out on the weekends. They had a little shore house in like Jersey Shore, and it would be myself, John, and in the realm of like 4 to 6 of our friends every weekend would all throw together a couple $100, and we'd buy like $100 worth of food, $100 worth of alcohol. So Friday and Saturday you're getting slaughtered, and come Sunday you're just kind of like chilling and recouping from the day. I was basically a house dad when everybody got slaughtered. I'd take care of everybody. I'd cook the whole time. If anybody got like out of their minds, just take care of them. And it just got to a point where it was our friend's 21st birthday. He was a big guy, but a lightweight, and he was gone after a few drinks. So he wanted to keep drinking. We'd distract him. I'd double down. I'd drink his drink and my drink. And by the end of the night, I'd have like 30 plus drinks. My alcohol tolerance was so significant at that point, and I would just sweat so much I was fine. But I remember watching the sun come up alone. Like, this is really depressing, and I don't want to do this anymore.
Hmm.
So I went up to John. John's been diabetic our entire lives. What would usually happen is after like the first hour and a half, 2 hours, his blood sugar would spike and he would just pass out. And our other friends would mess with him and stuff until I would get him up and take him up to bed. And I sat with him and was like, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't think you should either, because I don't want to watch you drink yourself to death. So after a while there, I stopped getting invited to stuff because I didn't want to
Hmm.
drink anymore. Because I was about 23 years old. That's when my sobriety started. And after 15 years, if drinking is the only thing we had in common, we've got nothing in common anymore, man. So we went 8 years without talking. I got a call about 4 years ago now, 3.5 years ago now. They found him on his couch dead. He had drinking himself to death shortly after the pandemic there.
Hmm.
And we hadn't talked in 8 years. And I have a lot of regret with that. That might be the only thing in life that I actually regret is
Hmm.
not getting to reconnect with John as an adult and just thank him for everything that he did for me as I was growing up. Because really, without him, I wouldn't be here.
Hmm.
And that's just something I have to live with. So you've seen all the memorial bands on my arms for people I've lost. John really kicked that off. John and Jake
Hmm.
really kicked that off. So I think about that. And I think about losing Jake. I think about losing John. I think about a lot of the other people that I've lost in life. And circling back to, I lived life for others because they can't anymore. That really is what tied into steel bending for me and
Hmm.
getting to become a circus strongman is just the premise of like, there is hope for the hopeless because I was hopeless for a very long time. And it just took for people doing small acts of kindness to show me that, yeah, a lot of stuff is really bad a lot of the time. But if you cherish those little moments and you're really appreciative of those who go up to bat for you, that carries a lot of weight. Those little moments can give you reason to keep going forward. So I think about my decisions that really came following like the loss of Jake and then the loss of John and me starting out as a young steelbender at 23 years old because of my mentor, William Sproat, and that legacy and that lineage. I remember getting to go and take Will's wife Emily home from work one night. We're driving home from work. She was one of my employees at the time. I was doing middle management at like a GameStop, nothing crazy. I had just stopped firefighting. I was just trying to work and pay the bills. And she looks over at my arms and she goes, Reed, you've got really nice triceps. I want you to meet my husband. Like, that's really weird. Not related quickly, but all right. So Will had been in the store a couple of times prior with their dog Gaia. That he used to pick up this little mutt and he'd put her on the back of his neck like a scarf. It was very cute. And I walk into their house. Will comes up. He's like, "Hey, good to see you again. Emily's told me a lot about you. I think for what you've overcome in life, you can do what I do." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what do you do?" And he hands me a steel horseshoe and he goes, "I want you to bend this." Like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? And he explained to me that if he and I are sitting in front of the stove and the stove is on, he's made the conscious decision that it will not kill him. So he's going to do it. He's going to touch the hot stove essentially. And he explained that if you're willing to push past the pain, you can do these things. And with that, I took this steel horseshoe and I flattened it out into an S. And from there, I kind of wanted to see what else I was capable of. So I was like, what's a feat of strength that nobody really does and why? And he told me about the rebar nose bend that sits right on the bridge of your nose. He's like, it's a lot of spinal compression. It can cause a lot of damage. I know a lot of guys that have got herniated discs and compressed discs that have had to go and get neck and spine surgery when they're later on in their careers. I'm like, I want to do that. They're like, didn't you break your neck? I'm like, yeah. So I went and really made that one of my signatures. And just as like a point of resilience and defiance to all the doctors that told me there'd be so much I would be able to do when I had injured my neck and had all that head trauma, this was my fuck you, watch this. And with that, I really saw this as a means of with firefighting. I really couldn't help people when I wanted to. And my station being a half mile from retirement home, we had a ton of medical events that we always had to respond to. A lot of the time, people were already down when you got there for cardiac arrest and what have you. And you're the last thing that people saw a lot of the time. So
Mm.
in that job, I was getting desensitized to life and death, and that felt very gross to me. So that's a lot of why I walked away from firefighting and getting to understand steel bending, the opportunity presented for me in that moment with Will. It's like, oh, I can show kids that the impossible can be done. I can show people that impossible things can be done. And that was like a light bulb moment for me where I really started to delve deep into nightlife performing and then mental health speaking in middle schools and high schools, implemented with my feats of strength to show kids that the impossible could be done. And my belief system really got pulled into our only limitation is time. Everything else is a matter of how far you're willing to go. And I still carry that today and hold that true
Hmm.
past obscure injuries and other things. Like I can keep going because I've already overcome all these things. These are minor, these are insignificant. I'm going to find a way to keep growing, improving, getting healthy, and moving forward because there's people that need me to be here for that. I don't get to necessarily choose of, I don't feel like doing it today. And to an extent, like I recognize that as a character flaw where I need to take time for me and I'm bad at it. But at the same time, like I'm very grateful I get the opportunity to be here for other people all the time. And steel bending has taken me so many places and circus has taken me so many places so that I never thought I'd even be in those rooms. I've gotten to perform
Hmm.
on so many different stages and so many different places and for so many different kinds of people where that impact has truly been incomparable for me. And getting to do it hand in hand with personal training has been really fulfilling all the way across the board. And thinking about a lot of the clients I've had over the years where they've come back from stage 3 cancer. And when we started out only being able to walk the track and comforting them as they sobbed, to getting them to deadlift more than twice their body weight and making jokes and seeing that hope and that spark in them again. And seeing people start with me when they're in such immense pain and have specialty medical disorders like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and getting to build programs for those specialty folks where they need that extra help and support.
Mhm.
And just seeing them be excited about their growth and their changes and seeing their mental health improve is just so wholesome all the way across the board. Where it's, I understand that both of my jobs All three of my jobs really are very heavy mentally and physically on me. But at the same time, like, I get to be a walking billboard and show these people what is possible if they're willing to keep going, knowing all the injuries and sharing that about myself and being vulnerable with those folks. I get to show them that there is a way forward, there is a way out, and there's a way to keep going if you're willing to try and understand that people will support you if you allow them to.
Reed, that is, uh, we have so many different ways that we can go, and I have tons of questions, that I wanna ask, but I don't think we're gonna get to, like, 2 of them.
All right,
So strong chance if you're willing, probably part 2, maybe part 3,
sure.
depending on how far we go. The first question I do wanna ask, your life from the pattern that I see from what I know of you, and then some of the stuff is brand new from what I've just heard, but your life is marked with transition and loss, it seems like,
Yeah.
from, like, almost literally year 1. Um, what would growing up because for the audience, and I'll make a little bit of a disclaimer at the intro when I record that part, but for the audience, like, I know Reed from the gym, like, he's a buddy of mine turning into a brother. We work at Rocky Mountain Flex Fitness, um, and so I know a little bit of the story, the background already, so that's a little caveat for the audience. But for you, Reed, what I wanna know is, because of, who I see in the gym on a almost daily basis, like, how did you were you are you already predisposed to somebody who, I mean, it's not just survival, it's somebody who is like it's like a fighting type spirit of getting past whatever hardship or transition that you're in. Were you already predisposed as like that as a kid? Or how did you manage to go from, you went from one living space to another living space, and then it was from, one parent to another parent. Then you were going from one state to another state. So how did you are you already predisposed to that, to somebody who's willing to fight through different transitions and losses? If not, then how did you manage all of that? Because for any other human being, I don't know how any other human being would actually be able to handle as much as you have.
So with that question, clearly I've jumped around a lot with ADHD brain. I know I got on the left field a few times before circling back, but we got there. You stuck with me. Thank you.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
I think you're able to see certain pains in people, and if you're willing to actually sit down, um, if you're willing to find out the why, people actually don't mind talking about themselves. And I currently operate as agnostic. I believe in some sort of greater being, not necessarily any sort of religion. And part of that is because of how I was brought up with as Presbyterian. Their entire principle is to build community. So, though I am not a religious person, I think that that sense of community is very important. And because I had that sense of community where other times I felt alone, I knew that no matter how the week went, there was my community available to me on the weekends. I knew I had something to look forward to, something to keep going and working
Mhm,
towards. And when I see a lot of people either starting out at the gym for the first time or I see people lifting for cathartic release, I understand that we all have our reasons. We all lift for different reasons. We all work out for different reasons. We all find whatever our purpose or pleasure or discipline is for different reasons.
mhm,
And getting to read people, getting to read body language, getting to see compensations in the way that somebody moves, that's always been instinctual. And I think reading somebody's energy and being able to genuinely care when others might just be doing surface level and be like, "How you doing? Oh, pretty good. How about you?" I'm like, "How you actually doing?" Like
yeah,
being willing to delve deeper and then respecting when people aren't in the headspace to delve deeper and just letting them know that you're available to them has been really impactful for me in reaching out to a lot more people and reaching a lot more people. And At the end of the day, man, I don't know how many people I'm gonna help. I don't know how many people I'm gonna save, if any at all. But being present and being available and giving them the opportunity to have light in the dark, I'm
Yeah.
always gonna be down for that.
Amen, brother.
I'm always gonna be available to people that I might not even really know, that they might just be acquaintances. I think it's important for people to realize, like, they don't have to be alone. They're not alone, ultimately, no matter how hopeless and filled with despair they are. Like, there are people like me in this industry, in this space, in this world that we're gonna fall short. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna say stupid things when we're tired that we're gonna come to regret, but we're gonna own it as well. We're
Yeah.
gonna say, "Hey, I was not in a good space on this day. I'm sorry I did this, that, and the other. I want to continue being available to you." Or it's going to be I don't think you realize how important your presence is here today. I
Yeah.
don't think you realize how strong you look today and how strong you're presenting today. And just simple things like that, where you can pay a non objectifying compliment is so important and can go so much further than a lot of the surface level things that we're taught on an everyday basis in society. I think that having overcome all these hardships and having overcome all of these difficult situations, I want to be that light for so many because I don't ever want anybody to feel how I feel on a daily basis. I mask exceptionally well, and I have had this conversation with you, I believe, but I think I am a person that is supposed to have purpose in helping others. I don't think I'm inherently a person that is supposed to experience happiness on a regular basis. I think
Yeah.
I'm here to be support and impact, positive impact for those around me. And I'm okay with that. I accept that. And I have nothing but gratitude for that if that is my life.
The I wanna I'm gonna touch on that here in just a second with and I think it was us who had that conversation. Um, while you were speaking, I looked up what the almighty and all-knowing, the all-wise Google would bring up, and I was looking up how steel is made, and I find it ironic because as you were sharing your story and as you were answering the question, the image that is coming to my mind for you, and it's a very ironic twist. I don't know if irony is actually the right word for it, and you can correct me,
We'll find
if you
out
have a
together in a moment, you know?
if you have a better word for it. Um, but you yourself, through the transitions, became like iron, like you had to go through a furnace of hardship in order for you to essentially, excuse the pun, but you had to steel your resolve as you grew up, encountering these different life situations that are incredibly difficult, especially ones where including loss of friends and loved ones, and internally needing to handle your own demons that were speaking to you because of at one point, like you mentioned, that you felt hopeless. But because of the furnace of life that you went through, you were tempered in such a way that those impurities, like steel, were having to be exercised out through continual hammering of whatever life was throwing at you, and you continued to get stronger internally. And the twist of irony is that the steel bending is that the what life has turned you into is something harder than steel, and you're now bending essentially that reality around you. Um, and that was the image that was coming to my mind as you were speaking, which is definitely different for me because that doesn't happen a whole lot. So I wanted to encourage you with that, for for what that's worth. Uh, to touch on the point that you said about happiness, I've been I don't think I've actually dialogued this with anybody before, so congratulations, you're the first person I'm gonna throw this at. Um, but, I think within Western society, and Western culture, one of these notions that this notion or the concept of happiness actually needs to be thrown out, because of its the temporary state and yeah, the temporary state that it puts us in, is so fleeting that it doesn't
Yes.
last, and in a way, it's almost like taking a shot of alcohol or, taking a hit of a joint or whatever, and it's like, "Oh, I'm happy and I want more happiness." Well, I agree with that to some extent in that, yes, happiness is a good thing, but I believe what we probably are all searching for, and the thing that we probably want more, and we just don't realize it because our society doesn't place this in the forefront, is joy.
Yeah.
Joy is probably what we're searching for and not necessarily happiness, and, from just a Christian standpoint, the reason why I believe that is just because literally it's written that it says that, for joy's sake that Christ endured the cross. Well, back then in Roman times, nobody wanted to be crucified.
Yeah.
So the fact that you have to go through that because it was for joy's sake on the other side of hardship, that and that endurance of suffering, but I think that's what we're ultimately after and chasing on that back end. Um, what I want to ask you another question. Yeah, we have probably time for another one or two questions. Are you good with
Sure.
time? Are you are you
Yeah,
good?
I probably have in the realm of like safe side, call it like 17 minutes, and then we can
Oh,
always pick up on another day as well.
cool. Well, yeah, yeah, for sure. Let me ask this last question and then we'll
Sure.
close it out just so I can give you respect your time and give you enough buffer so you're not having to hustle out and whatnot.
Appreciate you.
Um, what I want to know is, so you you have this, um let's call it a strand of DNA that's in you that has this desire to really help people. And like you touched on, was because you don't really want others to feel the way that you have felt. Uh, what so talk to me, like, I want to because I want to see if we can link this thread of you be having become a fireman. So like what was the thought process of going into the fire department and then realizing, and then you just shared why it wasn't really satisfying you for, being able to help people, but what is it that you were looking for when you became a fireman? And then when you're out on this other side, like, can you link that together of what you were really looking for and then what you're finding here on this other side of, where you're at as a personal trainer?
Yeah, so I truly believe that in becoming a firefighter, um, that career path set itself forward for me because I wanted to help people in a greater way for all the ways in which I couldn't help Jake when Jake took his life.
Hmm,
So this looked to me to be a means in which I could serve the soul beside me and could help the people in front of me, and understanding that with fires, things burn 3 times faster than they used to because of how building materials are now. So there's really no saving homes as far as that goes. When it comes to people, like so many times you get there after the fact, and we usually be first on scene where there's no helping those folks. They're already gone. And even in the sense of the cases that we had of people taking their own lives on the job, and seeing how my fellow firefighters were self medicating, it was just a you're desensitized to everything. It doesn't feel like, for me, it didn't feel like the purpose I'd set out to achieve was ever going to be close to fulfilled. And it just felt like endlessly treading water and always just ahead above drowning,
hmm,
as far as trying to care of other people, picking up more things, going into your arsenal. It was taking away from you. I was becoming less present. I was disassociating a lot. Like, I would physically be there and sharing space with people, but mentally I was 1,000 miles away.
hmm,
And you'll see me at the gym sometimes now. I'll walk and I'll tap my fingertips together because I'm trying to ground myself and stop myself from disassociating after I've had a heavy
Hmm.
conversation with a client or a friend. And I'm trying to stay present for who I'm there with in that moment so they can have my full undivided attention.
Hmm.
And going from feeling like I was just going against a giant machine of I am but one person amongst a crew of others that are all trying to help the souls beside them. It's endless. The tools aren't in place. The means to help these people at a greater level are not there. So getting to make the transition to personal training, steel bending simultaneously, it was where I could go after the mind and body of people simultaneously. I have
Hmm.
much larger platforms in which I could spread my message and have people be more available to me that I could help them and be a resource to them. So coming out of firefighting and getting credentials for suicide prevention, suicide survival speaking was very important to me. And all the specializations I picked up for personal training just gave me more tools in my toolbox to help more people. The goal, the intention has always been help as many people as possible because there were all those people when I was a kid that when I felt so alone were there to help me. My Aunt Betty, my Uncle Rick, John Biswanek, and all that friend group back in the way. And my mentor Will, when I was a young 20-year-old, very lost in the world and very angry. And you'll often hear me joke and say, I don't drink caffeine because I'm fueled by unquitted rage and angst. And I think there's something to be said, which is very interesting and calming about steel bending, is we're taught on natural strength. I have taught my brain that when I feel pain, I go into fight or flight response and I always choose fight.
Hmm.
So it is adrenaline manipulation. It is unnatural strength. It is also very dangerous in the wrong hands.
Hmm.
So even taking on students now, if I deem somebody immoral or evil, for lack of a better term, I will not teach them. I will conclude our training and I will spread to my colleagues this person is not fit to be a steel bender or perform feats of strength. This person is dangerous. Because with that legacy and lineage, as many characters as there are in the full time strongman community and all the steel benders throughout all time, for the most part, people did the right thing. They had huge hearts. They helped community. They helped the soul beside them. They helped out the new people up and coming. They made sure they were on the right path. And it is so important to me that that legacy and lineage continues to be strong even after I'm gone because we respected it. We understood the responsibility that comes with it. And as helpful of a tool it can be, how dangerous of a tool it can be. And knowing that's what we can do with the human mind. So I don't think that anybody is lost or is beyond help. I think that sometimes it's important to realize your scope of practice and what tools you can actually provide to somebody. So understanding that you can't save the world, but you're going to try anyways is very important. And understanding that it's okay to say, hey, I don't have the tools for this. Let me direct you to this person instead. I think that takes a lot of humility to understand, like, you don't have all the answers. You need to swallow your pride and you need to do the best that you can and direct somebody on the correct path as best as you can if they ask for it.
Reed, and for this first episode, and I think I really would like to have a part two with you because there's
Sure.
the second half of your life, the side that I know,
Yeah.
at least, that I'd love to be able to follow up on. If you could, because since mental health is something that both you and I have in common, wanting to being able to help others through it and being able to bring more awareness to the public space about it. There are more there are probably going to be people in the audience that are listening to this that either know somebody or they themselves are wrestling, struggling through, whatever, whatever it is that they're having to battle. Um, you, like myself, are a coach, and you are somebody who is obviously very passionate about being able to help others. So, in a concluding message, how would you coach and or encourage those who are listening who may be dealing with some kind of mental health issue?
I cannot express enough how important it is to reach out to the people behind you and beside you and just let them know. It is so difficult to be vulnerable. It is so difficult to let other people know that you're hurting because so many of us have been conditioned to not feel like a burden or feel bothersome. And I can guarantee you that the person beside you would have or would much prefer that you reach out to them and say, "Hey, I'm really struggling. I need your support," than you not being here anymore. And in all of my years of talking with people that have lost loved ones to mental health or have lost them to their mental health battles, every single one of them has deeply expressed they wish they would have known or seen the signs. And sometimes it's not a matter of they weren't looking, it's not a matter of they didn't put in enough effort. We mask very well. We don't want anybody to know that we're hurting. We don't want people to have to worry about us or think about our pain when we know they're going through things too. We do feel bothersome. We do feel burdensome. And it is so exceptionally important to understand that we have to give ourselves a chance. You have to reach out to those loved ones, those people you care about, because they can't know what they don't know. Unfortunately, we cannot read minds. They cannot read minds. The hardest part is having the conversation. But if you're willing to have the conversation, giving yourself a chance, and everybody deserves that chance because you hear it backwards all the time. People say it's easy to give up. It is exceptionally hard to give up. It is extremely difficult to give up. So when those folks make that permanent solution for those temporary problems, they don't see a way out. They don't realize that it's temporary because for them it's not.
Yeah.
That is how they expect the rest of their lives to go. So if there's something that I can express more than anything, talk to the people that are important to you. Let them know that you're hurting
Yeah.
because if you mask as well as I do, they can't know. They're not going to know. Have the hard conversation. Give yourself a fighting chance because odds are they're going to be there no matter what.
Yeah.
And for the folks that aren't there, they weren't worth your time. It doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, like if you have one, two good people in your life, it's really all you need.
Yep. Absolutely. Reed, that was beautifully said, man. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing your story, sharing your wisdom. And I know this is definitely going to benefit many people who are going to listen to this. So, yeah, thank you, man. Definitely appreciate
Thank
it.
you, brother. I appreciate you, bud.
Absolutely. Renegade Nations, Coach Steve and Coach Reed saying never conform.
Thank you.